All right, I'm gonna hit
Go.
go.
All,
Okay.
all right. It's Friday the 15th. This is an auspicious day, hopefully. I don't
Auspicious.
know. I'm just trying to be optimistic about things. We have a light week, so we're going to end probably early. Um,
Hmm.
some teams, a little Azure Active Directory, some Surface stuff. I have an
Surface.
eclectic list of things. How about you?
I'm all Power Platform this week. I have no Power BI. That's like a
That's all
rarity.
right.
So yeah, it's absolutely all right. But there's some good ones for Power Platform,
All right, man, you're up.
Power
Let's
Apps, and
go.
Power Automate. Cool. So this one is very cool. So if you didn't know, there is a GitHub repo, as you can see here, that's over on the Microsoft organization called Power Platform Connectors, which is where we put our certified and also some custom connectors out there. So custom connectors are things that aren't quite certified. So if you hop over here, you see things like Azure Key Vault. That's cool. Some other, O365 groups, and some other third-party things as
Hang tight. That
well.
Key Vault one is pretty smooth.
Yeah. So this one is. I immediately saw some need or some usage for
Yeah, because
this.
maintenance of that
Uh,
stuff and the expiration of it, that's as bad as certificates expiring. When I used to own and do Skype integration, right? And we always say to people, it's always a certificate. Like no matter what the error message is, it's the certificate's fault. It probably is expired or it didn't exchange or it wasn't legit or it wasn't, you know what I mean? And
right.
and keys are the new certificates in my opinion because we told people to move to these other methods of managing credentials, right? But then you got to actually do that. So that's interesting.
Yes. Yeah. So this is great. And at first, I want to say good morning to Christopher, who wished us good morning in
Oh,
the
well,
chat.
thank
So
you.
good morning, Christopher. I hope you're doing well. He called us gurus. I don't know about that, but uh, it's good to be here with you, Christopher.
We're goo something. All right. So, no, I
Yeah,
love this
bunch of
one. I
gooses.
think I might
So
go do something fun with that, and maybe.
so here's what it is though. So previously you could take the Swagger defs from the GitHub repo and import them, but now that is a kind of UI only import straight from GitHub. So how cool is that? And I can pull in the certified ones or the custom ones. So I really love
I
this. This is just making it
I think
easy.
I don't know. I should probably make a very quick story. Like stood up a work stream when I was running a national session for people doing custom
Hmm.
connectors, and a bunch of people ran away from it. They're like, "I'm not a developer." I'm like, "You don't have to be a developer to use a custom connector." They had this awesome example, and they still have it out there on how to just like go configure it against Yelp. Do you know what I mean? Like if there's
Nice.
a accessibility, like so custom connectors are not tough. Like you should really lean in to be able to connect to crazy stuff with it.
I totally
I
agree.
just
Totally agree. And I think that this will potentially lower some of the friction there to make it a little more
I know
approachable.
it wasn't that
Um,
bad before. Now you got this.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, I
That's
agree. So I
smooth.
think this is
All
great.
right.
And just so now it's just like don't be scared of the word GitHub. Just pull it in. You don't even have to go over to the GitHub repo if you don't want
Yeah.
to. So that's wonderful. All right. Some new speaking of connectors. This first one really jumped out at
Oh
me.
yeah.
So a bunch of Adobe PDF tools. This is great. So doing things like exporting to HTML, OCR scanning. I used to work my last software engineering gig before I came to Microsoft a while back. I worked for a document management company where it was an ISV. We did a bunch of engineering on top of SharePoint for things like that, and a lot of what we did was OCR and PDF work, and it was such special libraries and a lot of very specific industry specific things. And now it's like so
Yeah.
easy.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is wonderful. So being able to do quite a few things with PDFs as we do there. Africa's Talking Voice, so a lot of really cool things over there. And I think what was the other one I wanted to call out? Oh, I think we talked about this one a little bit ago, but just another call out to the data flows for Power BI. So being able to refresh them, get triggered when one refreshes, a lot of really cool things you can do there. So we talked about that a few episodes ago, so I won't belabor that. I absolutely loved this one. We have a model-driven thing and then a Canvas thing here in a second. But the model-driven thing is being able to send push notifications to your users on mobile. This is awesome. So, I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. If you scroll down, you'll be able to see what this looks like. There's just a send push notification um, action and being able to push it out. So this kind of makes sense. You want to let people know when things happen through Power Automate and being able to push that through to here in Power Apps. So absolutely love this. And then last but not least, this is experimental preview. Okay, but totally worth calling out because it's gonna. I think you're gonna see these things coming. So if you aren't a developer by background, one of the big reasons that people use source control, things like Azure DevOps, Git, GitHub, those are all source control things. If you don't come from that background, and that's okay. So don't feel intimidated by this. One of the big advantages you have to doing that is you get versioning, right? If you've done versioning inside SharePoint, you kind of know you can look to see the difference between one version of the doc and the other version, and even do diffs, which is where I can see the lines that were changed and those kinds of things. What they're working on now is the ability to use your Canvas-driven apps as actual code files, which enables you to do diffs between versions. So you can see like, oh, this is where I added that button, or this is where I changed the text, or this is where I added that new action, whatever it is. So you can like do bugs and all kinds of tracking. So this is really cool. Today, this is a very manual deal where I actually have to go to Save As and download the file and put it in GitHub or DevOps. It's just text at that point, right? It's a little bit manual, but that's again why I call this experimental preview. But this would be a great time if you're a citizen developer and you have any you want to do some familiarity work with how DevOps works, which basically means continuous delivery of value and being able to track these things and automate the promotion. Now would be a good time to maybe start to get familiar. I think more and more, Doug, we're going to be bringing people into things like GitHub that don't come from that traditional I write in C# or Java or Node for a living background, and that's a good thing.
I got one comment for it. The introductory videos on GitHub about Git and GitHub and its origins as a version management tool, and the examples they talk about documents are something almost everyone can relate to. I felt like Khan from Khan Academy has a analogy called Swiss cheese knowledge. He's like, you go through school and you manage to pass, but you don't really get the full layer, and then you stack up and you have holes you fall through occasionally. And I felt like I was using GitHub, but I had these foundational misses on some certain things, right?
And that's okay, by the way, right, to get going.
It's fine, right? But at a certain point, you have to go back and correct your knowledge. You kind of go back to kindergarten and walk your way up the stack. So it was about a year ago I went and did that. I just spent like a weekend, and I went through all the basics of everything. I was like, oh, well, I know a lot of these terms now. I still can't. The metaphor of push versus pull from a pull request. Yeah, pull request, right? Yeah. To me, it's like backwards. Right? So I had the hardest time.
It felt backwards to me for a while until I have to be honest. I remember at some point, it was probably, I don't remember how long ago it was, when I first kind of was learning Git years ago, and I actually had to go look. Like I'm sure I did a Google like, why is it called a pull request?
I know. Like, it's okay.
But don't be afraid to do that. I think one of the best skills in life is to stare into the abyss of unknown knowledge and just kind of take the
I was
on
a call some of our data scientists internally, and they were explaining like some of the testing and how they do net promoter score stuff and how they have to honor the privacy boundaries and how they build that into the very ecosystem of the way we do things. And I just sat there listening. They're like, well, do you have any observations? I'm like, I don't know any of this. Like, this is all like, I'm going to school right now. And the only thing I could chime in on was why the privacy boundaries the way they were, because they were data people, and they're like, we don't know why this works this way. I'm like, ooh, I know something. I know something in this room full of smart people.
Well, you and I were actually talking about this last night, a totally unrelated topic. It's like, you can't know everything. And that's why we work with smart people.
100%. Right? You just, I always say for data, my joke, it's select star from where Doug knows nothing, right? So I can visualize data, but I'm not really good at the back end systems and the pipelining but that to me, that's such an art. So
before I hand it to you, I'm just going to throw out a challenge. Like if you're in this space, right? You're doing maybe some light citizen development, and you hear about GitHub a lot, and you're like, wow, that seems a little scary or whatever. Seems like it's for dev. Throw that mindset out just for a time and just go do the GitHub 101s and see how this might work. I guarantee you this will be a useful skill down the road for you as you start to progress down here. I can't see that being a waste of time.
Yeah, so, I agree. I've decided that I have to get good at Markdown. That's my next thing.
Okay. Yeah. But It's actually, you'll find that's pretty
No, I
easy
know, but
after.
I'm not.
Yeah.
And so when I do
Hmm.
things, it doesn't format the way I want. I'm like, I have to spend a little time. And I know that
Wow.
these
I
things,
just had flashbacks to a project I worked on when you and I were in the same
yeah,
team, and I had to learn Markdown, and I was like seeing it in my sleep.
I was watching PJ, crafting something, and it was beautiful. Like it was just this beautiful documentation with all the things. I'm like, I need to get better because I do
I
have
had to
some
convert
things.
like hundreds of pages of Word documents to Markdown, and I had to fix all the issues, and that was
Yeah, if you went and looked at me, I mean, I
so.
moved away from kind of a quote unquote hands on technical role at one level, but I'm never going to step away from it, right? So I like to keep
Sure.
my nerd, even though I'm technically, some kind of program manager for cross solutions according to my job title. But
I still think you're a nerd,
thanks,
though.
man. I appreciate that. I'll take that as a compliment.
Absolutely.
All right, so I think we're going to cut over to me,
Totally.
and I don't have
Yes,
a
sir. Sure.
ton, so this should go pretty quick. First, I thought this was a little maybe puffy post, and I realized I was wrong. So this is the Azure Active Directory Frontline Worker Empowerment post from the security blog. And I did not know. I'm always a believer in getting things out of the hands of IT and into the hands of the people who should manage it, right? With governance and control on the back end. Did you know now you can actually do the Azure Active
Mhm.
Directory delegated management through the MyStaff portal?
I did not know
Yeah,
that.
I didn't
Yeah.
either. So there's a lot of those kind of tasks that are super critical on top
Very
of it,
cool.
but you can do access grant to employees without routing the request through the help desk, IT, or operations. Now, you still have governance. You could still socket these events into your change management, so your service catalog
Sure.
would have fidelity around the transactions for that user. So don't think you don't have governance and control. You do. You can do all the same things that you ever did, but you can have people who know what they're doing about the user communities maintain it with your little oversight and eventing. And so just remember, everyone's like, well then what about all my governance and control? No. We still have all those events firing and everything in the mind the gap. The reason we have our logo, right? GUI and API and a power something for it. So they just built a GUI. You still have all these rich event services and you can do integrations on top. And I would argue this is a better and more authoritative way to go about it. So that's pretty cool. They have a simplified authentication stuff. We've covered that authentication method, but they actually have some kind of nice examples of, hey, look, I'm signing in for the first time, putting in my phone number, get the text message back, boom, and then you're into Teams, right? So for those kind of ground zero provisioning on top of things on top of it. And then there's also a bunch of stuff around shared device sign out. So if you have shared devices between shifts or anything like that, there's some nice experiences around that. And so they have a little look ahead as to where they're going from the identity team. So I thought it was nice because normally when you see Azure AD stuff, you're in an Azure AD console. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like an Azure AD announcement. Like, so I immediately went, marketing post. Not so. It was an interesting, like putting it out more in the hands of the
Yep.
citizen admins. Ooh,
Citizen admins. I like it. Did you just make that up on the fly?
I
That's
did it. Well,
cool.
maybe it already exists and I just didn't know about it. But I did. That
Right.
was just a moment. I was about to say citizen developers. I'm like, they're not developers. Okay, let's retain our security thread and be super nerdy about PCs enabling virtualization-based security and, shall we do it together, hypervisor protected code integrity. All right.
Love it. Okay.
This is actually super important. It's advanced memory protection. Crap happens when things get access to memory spaces they shouldn't. Like that's how most attacks happen.
Hmm.
One of the most devastating ones I saw recently about an attack through an API surface was the over-the-air. Do you see the iOS attack where you could compromise an entire iPhone simply by its automatic AirDrop feature? Where you could send a
No,
malicious
that one
packet,
doesn't sound familiar.
you could drop it, and you would take control of the phone by a backdoor API, essentially a buffer overflow, into an API for AirDrop, and the user had to do nothing, accept nothing. Their phone could be in their pocket, and it could be pwned, right?
Yikes.
Yeah, it was Apple patched it like, right away when the security researchers
Sure.
found it, but obviously code's written by humans, right? But
Sure.
the more the layers. Now that one was an exposed endpoint, so you know what I mean. But the more you prevent things from going places they couldn't, the more better offer you are. So I just like thinking about security attacks and how we can make them harder. And I always say you can't stop them all, but what you can do is make them. Often you can make them inspectable, right? Like by doing
Yep.
isolations and moving, the security authority, the LSAS, into its own virtualization. People can still attack it, but they kind of have to walk across a brightly lit room to do it. And so I think
Right.
we're trying to get better, the industry, all of us, at architecting things in a manner that you're walking across brightly lit rooms to attack. And so I think it's an interesting post around, hey, what are we doing in our hardware stack? What do these things happen? What's going on with the UEFI open source stuff, right? So it's just a lot of really interesting things here for how to do advanced security around devices. Happens to be on top of the Surface family, but obviously applies more broadly as well. All right, so those are fun ones. Now I got 2 Teams ones, and then we're kind of out for today.
Okay.
Continuing our trend of frontline worker support. So they were talking about frontline worker. Do you like my radio voice? Was it good?
Was that your frontline worker voice?
Yes, it's my worker announcement voice, right? So it's my overhead pager announcement. So task publishing. Have you seen this? Like, it's actually kind of cool. Companies can create tasks centrally at the corporate level and publish the tasks to different locations. It's like a task syndicator. Like,
does it publish down to or planner or both, or how
yeah? I mean, it's a task publishing. So it says, hey, look, it says retail communication team is publishing and publishes it out, and then and then it's in and it's on the down low right there, right? So
I have so many questions. Okay.
Well, then go read the article. It's just because it's tasked by Planner and To Do. If you look at the outcomes built natively into it.
How does it know? Does it automatically assign? I don't know. That's okay.
Well, you can. Well, I mean, kind of. I mean, you can designate the hierarchy for it, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's cool. You can go check it out. So that one caught your attention. Awesome. Look at that, right? So I got Todd going, ooh, shiny, because you and I like task management.
Well, I mean, because I think I've worked on some things with customers in the past doing like a centralized templating deal, right? And it required more like Power Automate or PowerShell or whatever. So this is very cool.
Yeah, I feel like the roll up and the rest. And if you think about the fact this all has API surfaces and Power BI connectors and stuff, like you can do amazing things with this. Yeah. And so I'm kind of jazzed by this, and I was like, dang.
I'm gonna say that's dope.
There you go. Way to be hip with the lingo. So we already covered that sign-on one, so I'm just scrolling past that because why say it. You can add mention by shift group, which I thought was pretty cool for teams to hit like who's working. Like you show up for your shift and you're
that's one of those where I'm like, that's cool. That wasn't there before.
Yeah. But delegated management got a repeat on top of that. And then they talk about the digitization of Power Platform for low code, no code, and
like Dataverse type stuff.
Yeah. And then they have a whole bunch of policy packages on top of it and team templates for like organize the store and different things. So they're really getting down on top of it. And then obviously the shared devices got with endpoint management. And then Mechanics did a looking ahead and talking about the walkie-talkie functionality on top of it, which I've heard really good things about the walkie-talkie functionality. Obviously, at the moment, is Android-only feature set. From a walkie-talkie standpoint, at least as far as I'm aware, but I have not dug in to see where we're at or what capabilities. And I believe that it's just simply, I think there's some iOS limitations on how you can do announcement things or whatever. I don't know what exactly they all are because I have not watched that content. So I'm going to stop right there and say I don't know, but I do know that functionality is pretty interesting, and some of the people internally who were very suspicious about they're not going to be able to pull that off like that, and they're like, not only did they, but it's great. And so some of our internal skeptics, I was on a call with a few of them right before the holidays, and they're like, hey man, this thing's really cool. And I'm like, you guys were all so like, I don't mind sharing some insider baseball once in a while and say they were not optimistic, and apparently what shipped was pretty cool.
Nice. That's great.
So yeah, so a lot of good stuff around that. Kind of dovetails together from our little like, what about those people who aren't knowledge workers? We're getting better. I feel like we're on the same journey about those scenarios, the non-knowledge worker scenarios that we were on early days of Power BI, right? Where it's sort of this early mature, and you couldn't do this, and you couldn't refresh, and you couldn't hit large live data, like you couldn't do this kind of, you can't do that kind of management. one of our colleagues out of Christina, the director at Silicon Valley, the technology center, she and some of the other architects in the MTCs, did you see that story? How they created a crisis response for the hurricane damage in Honduras and built on Power Platform a real-time geolocation service that people could say they needed assistance. Where were they? And it was like low bandwidth, live, with data visualizations and coordinated with the Honduran Emergency Response Organization. And they built this sucker in like 2 weeks. Like a
Wow.
commercial grade application on top of it, and put it in the hands of people who were in need of like emergency medical assistance, food, water.
Do you know, is there a public story on that?
Yeah,
Or is it
yeah. I mean, it was done with. There are some. I'll see if I can find the link and get it out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say we should put it in the show
But
notes.
the
That
work
sounds
was just
awesome.
amazing, right? And so it was
I
done
love
with like
those
the
stories.
Chamber of Commerce. Apparently, there's only one Microsoft full-time employee in Honduras, but we still leaned in with our emergency teams and did a bunch of work on top. It's just a really cool story, right? I'm not getting I'm getting the major points, but I'll see if I can find it and drop it out to Twitter just to say,
Very cool.
because it was so cool. It was just watching citizen development put tools in the hands of people in a short sprint, and
Right.
then the team was really like, people were using it to get critical stuff within days. So that is and apparently they had early prototypes working in like hours. So these things matter, and these capabilities matter to be able to put it in the hands of people who aren't traditional knowledge workers. And I think we're getting better at citizen development to put things in the hands of people like that, and we're getting better at our tooling to support those scenarios out of the box with pre-canned value propositions, which I think is
I'll say this.
really good.
I think the years 2018 and 2019 were largely vision setting and delivery. 2020 was a lot of really people like digging in and doing things for real
Yeah,
in
they had
citizen
to.
development land. And I think 2021 is like, and I keep saying this everywhere. I don't mean to be cliche. Like, it's the year, right? It's the year of citizen development. And what I mean by that is, I think really making these things real, putting real processes around it,
Yeah.
and really putting it in the hands of people that can affect change in a short period of time. I mean, it's legit.
I'm
It's
certainly
not
not going to argue with that. All right, we're heading to our last 3 minutes because we want to be done a little early today. So approvals in Microsoft Teams, GA, check, right? Create an approval request from a chatter channel. Approve or reject a request from right in line, right on top of it. Track and manage approvals. Approvals. Bring all of your
Do all the
approvals
things with approvals
into one place. Lots of approvals. Okay, coming soon. Capture electronic signature.
So I'll give that another dope.
Hello, right?
Yeah.
And so using Adobe, DocuSign, and other third-party providers. So I don't know how to say this. I'm super happy that it works with all the ones you would expect it to work with like immediately right now, because
Lovely.
I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like I was like, oh no, please tell me it's not like some weird partnership that's for a new thing,
Right.
because there's already things that do this, and we should just honor the things, you know.
Sure.
I have no problem if there's other things, but the big things should be integrated with, and they were, and I'm so happy.
That's awesome.
So training resources and content resources around the topics on top of it. So that is it for my updates for the week. A little BIOS, a little bunch of Frontline stuff, and approvals. We approve. This show, I approve ending early and giving people back. Not that they couldn't hang up anytime they wanted to, but we'll give back. What do we always say in a meeting? Well, we'll give you back 7 minutes of your time. I'm like, sure. What am I gonna do with that? All right. It's gloomy in Minneapolis. I hope it's sunny wherever you are, and I hope that this weekend. First, I hope people have a great weekend. And here in the United States, obviously, we have a celebratory holiday for Martin Luther King Jr. on Monday. So I hope people use that time for reflection, given everything that we've had around. I plan to do some of that. So I hope everyone has a great and it's really icy and slippery in Minneapolis. So if you're around this area, be safe wherever you are and be kind. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. All right, you all.